cosmic consciousness, extraterrestrials and UFOs, sacred geometry, ancient civilizations, spiritual connection, the quantum universe. All of these topics and so much more with your host, Seb Tuck, on Alien Spirit with Seb.
Hello, welcome to Alien Spirit. I'm Sev. Our guest today walked into her backyard on June 30th, 1983, and came face to face with an egg-shaped craft and ETs. Debra Jordan-Kauble. She is the central figure in the international bestseller Intruders, the Incredible Visitations at Copley Woods by Budd Hopkins, who's an established author and an artist and a prominent UFOlogist. The book was made into a CBS miniseries in 1992, and Deb has also co-authored Abducted, the story of the Intruders Continues, with her sister, and she wrote another book, Extraordinary Contact, Life Beyond Intruders, about her life going forward after her contact event. Deb is a former Indiana MUFON investigator. She co-founded her own paranormal group, Paranormal Underground, and Deb co-hosts two shows, Midwest Paratalk Radio and Voices of Contact. She also administers the Zero Midwest Experiencer Facebook page. She's an experiencer advocate, helping experiencers cope. And she's a retired auto industry worker, a cosmetologist, a Red Cross volunteer, a member of Mensa, a wife, a mother, a grandmother, and a great-grandmother. Deb lives in Indiana with her husband of 30 years and her Yorkie, Missy. Please welcome Debra Jordan-Kauble.
Hi, Sam.
Hi, Deb.
Nice to see you. Been
Nice
a while.
to see you too. It's a pleasure. You have an incredible story. You're actually one of the well-known experiencers. I put you up at experiences that are well-known. I put you up there. And I guess the book by Budd really put you on the map. But to begin with, where were you born? Where were you raised? And what were you interested in as a youngster?
Well, I was born in Indianapolis, Indiana, and I've lived in Indiana my whole life. I'm still here. I don't live in Indy anymore, but still in Indiana. I've always been interested in unusual things, I guess. I mean, I was interested in all the same things all the other kids my age were, but I was a little different than like most of my friends and stuff. I was more kind of bashful in a way. I kept quieter, but I was always thinking.
Were you into the supernatural or into ghosts or anything like that?
Well, I was exposed to that stuff pretty early in my life. My mom was interested in it. I remember her talking about, do you ever remember Sylvia Brown?
Sure.
My mom used to read her books, and whenever she was on TV, would see her on TV and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And my older sister was interested in that stuff as well. And my older sister had a UFO sighting in 1965 when I was 6 years old in 1965. And she was 11 years older than, almost 8 years older, almost 12 years older than me. So I heard them talk about it, when it first happened to her and stuff. And I just thought that was life. That was everybody. I didn't think I was any different than anybody else. I thought everybody was interested in that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And there would be, I remember distinctly Mom telling the story of all of the neighbors getting up on the roof of the house on Michigan Street, because Dad had a ham radio. He was a ham radio operator, and he had a tower up against the house, and he'd climb up on it. And the neighbors, some of his neighbor friends, would climb up on the roof and look for UFOs. So, but I didn't think anything of it. I just thought that was normal. So
Did they see any?
I don't know. They must have seen something or they wouldn't keep doing it.
Is this the same house?
No.
It's a different house.
No, this is not the same house.
But your dad was into that.
It was kind of strange because my mom and dad lived on one side of town and they had my sister, right? So they were young when they got married, like 17 and 20 or 19, you know, and they had my sister early on. And then they didn't have any more kids for years and years. And Mom said that the rumor in the neighborhood was that the house that they were living in, that they were renting, was like jinxed, or like nobody ever had children that lived in this house. So eventually they moved into the UFO house, is what I call it. Not the one where the stuff happened in 83, but the house where people used to get on the roof and watch for UFOs, right? And that they weren't that house very long. And they got pregnant with me after almost 12 years. And Mom, I remember her telling us that they wanted to have more kids. They just never did. And eventually she went to the doctor inquiring about it. Of course, you know, this was 70 years ago, but they just basically told her, well, you're just not going to have any more kids. So she went home and assumed that she wasn't going to have any more kids. And then all of a sudden they moved into this new house. And like less than a year later, I'm coming along. And
what do you think that was about?
Well, I don't know. But, you know, right after I was born, my brother was conceived. My brother and I are 14 months apart. And then my brother and my little sister are probably 14 or 15 months apart. So it's like boom, boom, boom. A whole nother generation of family to raise after having the oldest child be like almost a teenager, you know, preteen, 13, 12. And I said, what did you do? Slip on the steps and fall one day and lock something loose? She says, I don't know what happened. But so I figure I must have been meant to be here one way or another.
Yes. And were you actively engaging in your psychic abilities, like consciously at that time?
I don't know that it was conscious. One of my first dreams that I had, or I always thought it was a dream, but you know, I don't know. I was little and I was obsessed with my older sister. I worshiped the ground that she walked on. I wanted to be like her. Mom said I used to run out to the school bus and yell sissy every day when she got off the bus, you know. And so when she would become a teenager and start going down the street to spend the night with her friends, you know, with her girlfriend Denise down the corner, I didn't want her to go. I would be like devastated that she was not home. And I remember one time going to bed, and I remember we used to go to bed before it was even dark out. And the house, we didn't have air conditioning or heat. We had heat. We didn't have air conditioning. And so I remember the windows open and the curtains blowing, and I could smell the lilacs because there was a big bush by my window. And I remember all of a sudden, I'm laying in my bed, and then I'm standing out in the front yard. And the light looks different than it did in my bedroom. In the front yard, the light looked kind of dim, like dusky, maybe. And there was a breeze blowing on my face. And I heard somebody say to me, if you put your arms out and lean into the wind, you can fly. So I did. And then the voice said, you can go see your sister now. And I flew down to Denise's house. And I went to her bedroom window and I saw my sister in there with her friend. They were playing records on the record player and they were rolling their hair with orange juice cans. They had empty orange juice cans in their hair. And they were rolling each other's hair and listening to records. And I went right through the window into the bedroom. And I kept yelling at her, trying to get her attention. But they didn't see me. And then I realized I was like, suddenly up in the corner of the bedroom. And, you know, I didn't think it was weird that I was there because she was there, right? But then all of a sudden, I remember thinking to myself, oh my God, I got scared. when I realized what I was doing and where I was, I got scared. And I remember thinking, what if I fly away? What if I float away and I can never go home? And the instant I thought that, I woke up and I was back in my bed. But that always stuck with me.
Okay, did you tell your sister?
Yes.
What did she say?
Nothing. She just looked at me and shook her head and rolled her eyes like I was crazy. She never confirmed.
But you told her what they were doing and you would have no idea. And so I don't recall her ever confirming or dying. You probably freaked her out.
But you know what? I was recently this year given audio tapes that I did not even know existed of phone calls that my family and myself had with Budd Hopkins. I did not know these phone calls existed, these recordings. I knew that he recorded everything that we did. I knew he had recorded our phone calls because we gave them permission. He always said he was going to do it beforehand, and he always kept it for his research, right? And I knew he always recorded my hypnosis sessions, but I never had any of those tapes in my possession. They were always his, and then, he passed away in 2012, and I never got any of that stuff. Well, they surfaced. Someone found some of them in some of his belongings, and they were given to me. Somebody made digital copies of it for me so I could keep them. A miracle of miracles. These 40-year-old tapes still worked enough that we could get the copies, for me. And then one of these tapes is the phone interview, like the initial phone interview you did with my sister Kathie. When he first began the investigation, which means a lot to me because, of course, Bud's gone, Mom's gone. So I've got recordings of her voice. My sister Kathie is still with us, but she has severe dementia. She's 77 years old, and she's in a memory care center and has severe dementia. So she doesn't remember anyone or anything, but to hear her voice and hear her talk, when she was young. So all these tapes, they're priceless to me. And I'm so grateful that I have them. But I remember listening to the one of her, and she even made comments to Budd in this audio tape. She said, there's something different about Debbie. There's something special about her. I mean, this is for my sister, so don't get me like I'm all that. But I'm just saying my sister said this. And she said that if she learned how to control what she could do, she would be unstoppable. And and she told him about the time that I bent up the handles on my mom's. My mom had brass doorknobs and handles on her kitchen cabinets. And one year, my sister decided that us kids were all going to refinish Mom's cabinets for their anniversary. She was older, and I was a teenager then, probably 13, 14 years old or whatever. I didn't want any part of that nonsense. I could have cared less, But she made me help. So she took all the handles off of the stuff off of the cabinets and put them in a bucket of soapy water. And it was my job to clean them, scrub all the, cooking grease and gas off of them and polish them up. And I didn't want to do it. I was mad. So I'm out in the garage, or I'm out in the driveway with the hose in this bucket, scrubbing on these in the soapy water. And she came out to check me, and she's like, so let me see how it's going, So I rinsed out the bucket full of soapy water, and it revealed that a bunch of these brass handles were just twisted in pieces, just twisted in knots, just twisted all up, bent and all different kind of crazy ways. And she's like, what in the hell did you do to this? And man, she was mad as hell at me. I'm like, I don't know what I did. I was just cleaning them. And she said, bend them back, fix them, and so they were brass. There was no way that any of us could bend them back. She's like got pliers out she's like, now I'm going to have to buy all new handles.
All right. How do you explain that, Deb?
I have no idea. I did not know I was even doing it.
Didn't you completely just freak yourself out after that?
Nope.
Why not?
I don't know. I think it's because she got so mad at me, and I was more concerned with her being mad at me than I was what happened. And I never really thought twice about it.
Well, did that story get out into the neighborhood and to your friends? And were you known as like a sorcerer or something?
No.
A wizard?
It was only between me and her, basically. I don't know if she expressed to Mom why she bought new knobs or anything. I don't know.
Okay, so when Kathie, you said your sister's name is Kathie.
Mhm.
When Kathie was talking to Budd and she was saying these things about you, which she was not telling you at the same time that she was telling Budd, right?
No,
so you had no idea.
I didn't
so
know.
to hear it afterwards must have made you feel really good.
Well, it
and
did.
that you were being seen,
Yeah.
but you didn't know it.
No, and like I said, we did a lot of things that were different that I never realized were different. I mean, when you grow up in something, you don't, it's just like kids who grow up, who I knew that grew up without TVs. You don't miss what you don't have, and I didn't, everything paranormal, or what we would consider paranormal or weird now, in my family, we just considered it normal.
Yeah.
So I didn't give it a second thought,
Right.
and I figured I must have just, scrubbed him too hard. I never realized, that was not possible. I just never realized it. So.
Okay, so how much time elapsed between you twisting metal with your mind and the egg-shaped craft in your yard?
Well, I was a teenager then. I was trying to think back. We were in that house, so I had to be. We moved in there when I was 14, maybe. Oh, it was several years. It was several years.
Did anything happen in between?
Well, we'd have people would think they see ghosts out of the corner of their eye. Lights would go on and off. One time, I can't remember exactly when this was or where this fell into the timeline with the June 30, 83. I believe it might have been right after June 30, 83, or it could have been right before. We were awakened by, I can't even remember how it went now, but anyway, the police arrived at our house because they heard a woman screaming and the neighbors had called the police. But it turns out it was like a turkey on our roof or some crazy stuff like that. They thought it was a woman.
Turkey on your roof.
Yeah.
Okay.
Weird stuff.
What are the chances of a turkey on your roof?
I don't know. But yeah, because they don't even fly, right? I don't think they fly very much.
Just a little bit. But I don't know if they go that high. Maybe it was the ET on your roof screaming that looked like a turkey. Mike Cleland and the whole owl thing. Maybe you have a turkey thing going.
Yeah, I don't know. It just, I can remember my mom, okay, my parents were unique people. They had their flaws like everybody does. And our family wasn't perfect. We had our dysfunctional parts, just like everyone else, But my mom was adopted when she was 2. She was she was taken to an orphanage when she was 2. I right before she passed away, I did about 2 years before I started trying to do some genealogy, trying to find her, roots. When she found out she had cancer, maybe I could give her some, gifts of her. Her older sister had found her a few years before, but Mom really never had much of a relationship with her actual birth family, And one time, one of her birth brothers showed up at the house, but I was later. I found through DNA, I found like some third cousins in North Carolina that were full-blooded Cherokee. And I discovered here recently that my mom likely came from a Melungeon family in the Appalachian of Kentucky.
Oh, how interesting.
And my mom looked mixed. I mean, she had olive skin and dark curly hair and hooded eyes. And she looked like a movie star, I almost thought, but she was taken to an orphanage and dropped off. She was the youngest at 2 years old. All the older boys, they'd already left home. They were a lot older. Mm-hmm. And so and she was adopted by an Air Force master sergeant who took her immediately to the Philippines, and then she lived in China. I have a picture of him actually with General MacArthur, and I'm not sure what he was doing with MacArthur. It was like he was a guard for him or something. But anyway, then they came back to Kentucky, and that's where Mom met Dad, when she was 16. So Mom was always really unique. And I discovered that we have, like in my DNA, I'm like a human Petri dish. I have DNA from, I have European, Welsh, English, Irish, Scottish, French, Germany, Belgium, Portugal, Spain, Peninsular Arabia, Iran, Mesopotamia, Caucasian, Senegambian, Guinea. Yeah, I mean, it's like.
Yeah, but you forgot what? You forgot that one.
I have 0.2% unknown, so they haven't been able to trace it.
0.2% unknown.
Not traced or at this time. Or
untraceable.
Yeah. And then
they might as well just call it cosmic.
And then 274 Neanderthal variants on top of that, just extra muddy up the water. So I'm a human Petri dish, and that come from my mother. And my mother used to play psychic games with us when I was a kid. I didn't know what they were at the time, but you know how parents play with, flashcards, right? Well, my mom played with flashcards with us, but instead of holding them up and her looking at them, and then, showing us, tell me what color this is, what shape is this, she would turn them down on the table, face down, and then tell us to tell her.
Oh my gosh, my dad did the same thing with us. That's so interesting.
And we did,
Isn't that fun? I loved doing that.
I did too. And we were all good at it. It wasn't just me. My little brother and sister were just as good. And so anyway, and my father, my grandma always used to say he was psychic, that she said he was born with a veil over his face, which for years I had no clue what that meant till I finally learned that I think it means the sac was intact. He was still in his embryonic sac when he came out or something like that. And that was, a long time ago. But she always used to tell the story of whenever he went to school one time and he didn't want to come home because he said that the neighborhood was on fire and he was afraid to, come home from school. And as it turned out, that day when he was coming home from school, a bunch of houses in the neighborhood were on fire. And then Grandma always.
This is your brother, did you say?
No, this was my dad when he was.
Oh, your dad.
Uh-huh. And then I remember when my mom was dying of cancer, and I knew it was coming. I just knew it was time. And so I drove up to Indy from where I lived, and I stayed at the hospital with her for a couple of days, and I spent the night that night. And so it's like 11:30, and she was getting ready to go in hospice. Because we knew she was going to pass, but we didn't know it was that soon. But I did. I just knew. And 11:30 that night, I hear this commotion out in the hallway, and it's my old man. And he's shuffling down the hallway with his cane, and my brother's walking behind him. I'm like, Daddy, what are you doing here? And he said, your mother called me. And I said, no, she didn't. She'd been asleep here. I've been sitting here all night. And he goes, did I say she used the phone? By God, he sat down next to me, and hospice was supposed to come and get Mom and take her at 11:30 or at noon that following morning. But at 11 o'clock in the morning, she passed away. And we were there because we knew. My dad said he could smell it. He says he smells death. He said he's gone now too. My dad's been gone for years, but
okay.
So that's the people I come from. Yeah.
Yeah. Intuitive psychic lineage is pretty activated.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So let's jump to.
And you can edit that all down to whatever you.
I'm not editing it. No, I'm not editing any of it. It's really cool. June 30th, which is my birthday, by the way.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So June 30th, 1983. Please tell us what happened. Okay. So you are how old? You're in your 20s at this point?
I believe in 1983, I believe I was 24.
Okay. And you know, I have pictures, so just cue me as to which picture to show as you're describing, please.
Okay. Well, I was living with my parents at the time. I'd just gotten divorced and I had 2 young kids, and I'd moved back home recently. And I had a friend that lived behind mom and dad, and she was a seamstress and she made costumes and other things. And she offered me some extra spending money to help her with her costumes by cutting out patterns, because I can't sew worth a damn, but I can cut pretty good straight lines. So I was getting ready to go over there and make a little extra spending money, you know. And I can even tell you what we had Kentucky Fried Chicken for dinner. My mom had brought it home from work because my hands were greasy after eating my supper and feeding my boys. And so I was standing at the kitchen window, standing at the sink in front of the window, washing my hands. And I noticed this weird light in the pump house of the swimming pool. And I knew it wasn't supposed to be there because I had been out there earlier dosing the pool with chlorine and whatnot and I remember struggling with that latch because it was kind of rusty to get that door open and then get it shut. And I thought that was weird, but there was something else about the light that was weird. At the time, I couldn't put my finger on it. In retrospect, the light was not the right color. It was more whitish and bright rather than just a regular light bulb that was out there. But it was enough to catch my eye. And I thought, what? You know, that's kind of weird. So I mentioned it to her and she's like, don't worry about it. Your dad will get it when he gets home. Because he worked second shift at the local factory down the street. So he wasn't home at the time. And I was about ready to leave mom with my 2 little boys there, you know. So it was on my mind when I got into my car. I thought, I'm just going to go down that side drive and then back in the turnaround that's behind the swimming pool, because my dad had a big workshop back there. And he had Alpine Sunbeam race cars that he was restoring. He had Indian motorcycles back there he was restoring. He was building radio control models and things. There was a lot of money back there. And I was not thinking about aliens or anything weird like that. I was thinking about burglars or robbers, you know, and I'm leaving my mom here with my 2 little kids. My dad's not home. So I thought, I'm going to just drive back there and just make sure everything looks okay. So I did, drove back down the side drive, went around the turnaround, looked at the back of the house. The light was off. And I thought, well, mom must have went out there and turned it off while I was getting in the car at the front of the house and whatnot. So, but I did notice that the pedestrian door to the garage that was attached to the house was open. And I knew that shouldn't be open because that was where my dog Penny was at the time. Mom had her out there because she was in heat, didn't want her messing up in the house, but didn't want her out in the neighborhood either, you know? So, and I'm like, well, damn, Penny's probably out. So I drove on over to Deanna's house, which was like 2 minutes away. And as soon as I got home, I called mom and I said, hey, the pedestrian door is open. That means Penny's out. And she's like, don't worry about it. I'll have your father get her. And I didn't even think to ask her at the time, did you shut off the light? It never passed my mind. So I said, are you sure? And she's like, yeah, don't worry about it. And I'm like, okay. So I hung up and then she called right back. And I answered the phone and I said, she said, Debbie. And I said, yeah. She's like, I need you to come home right now. And I'm like, why? And she's like, I just need you to come home right now. And my girlfriend's husband at the time, they were both in the room with me. And I'm sure they could both tell that something was up. And Larry yells over my shoulder, hey, tell her to call the police. That's what we pay him for. And she heard him and she said, no, I don't want anybody here but you. And I'm like, all right, I'll be there in a couple minutes. So I told my friend, hey, I'll be back. I'm just going to go check everything out, make sure everything's cool. So I go back home and I pull up to the side of the house this time, that side drive I originally went down, but except I stopped at the house and stopped at the patio room there. And I got out of the car and I went in the patio room and mom was in there. And I grabbed the shotgun that my dad had next to the trash compactor. And I knew it wasn't loaded. My mom like, you know, that's not loaded, right? Because when I moved in, I told my dad, Dad, if you're going to keep a gun in there, it's your house, but can you please don't let it be loaded with my kids in here. So it wasn't loaded. And I said, well, whoever's out there, if there's somebody out there, they're not going to know it's not loaded till I'm close enough to them. I can beat the hell out of them with it. So, it's all good. It's a weapon one way or another, which is all crazy because I was not that person then. I would do that now in a heartbeat and not even think twice. Matter of fact, who knows what I do, but back then I was a wuss. So even the fact that I went out there on my own in the dark, walking around to look for burglars is crazy. That was totally not me. So anyway, I went to the pump house, didn't see anything and everything looked normal. Didn't hear anything, didn't notice anything weird. I walked out back by Dad's thing to look for make sure that the workshop was secured. Found my dog under Dad's ladder truck. She wouldn't come out. She wouldn't come to me. I'm like, fine, stay there. I went back across the yard and into the garage through that open door thinking, well, if there's anybody here, this is the last place they'd be hiding, and then we're good to go. So I'm in there and all of a sudden I feel this sweep over me, this burning sensation on my skin and my body. The panic just hit me like a ton of bricks out of the blue. And I remember thinking to myself, oh my God, I got to get out of here right now. And I headed for the open door. And the minute I hit that open doorway, bam, something hit me right here, like in the chest area. And it was like a white ball of light fist that punched me. And then my eyes were blinded. All I could see was this blast of white light, right? And it was so intense that I'm sure my eyes were closed, but I could still see it. It was that intense. And I could feel this burning, shaking, vibrating, tingling sensation spread from my chest, through my arms, down my legs, up around my head, everything. And I could feel myself shaking. And then the shaking like turned into a vibrating. And then the vibrating turned into like me feeling like I was blowing apart cell by cell. And I remember one thought, oh my God, I'm dead. And I don't know how long I was in that condition. I have no idea how much time passed or how long I stayed like that. But the next thing I remember is I'm out through the doorway onto the cement patio now. The shaking has stopped. The vibrating has stopped. The light intensity has waned tremendously. I still can't move. I can't move anything but my eyes. And my vision is wrecked. My vision has these blotches of white in them that are like just smearing up everything I see. But I can see movement out in front of me. And I'm really struggling to make out what I'm seeing. And I think I'm seeing kids. And I remember thinking to myself, what are these little kids doing in my mom's yard? And at some point I heard a voice that say, it was unfortunate that I felt pain. Then I felt this touching me on the shoulder, pulling back from behind me, pulling back on my shoulder and down. And then I felt this intense burning in my right ear. And it felt in my mind, it was like I could see this like white hot knitting needle like thing going in my ear, in my mind's eye. You know what I mean? It's not like I actually was looking at it, but that's what I was seeing that it felt like. And when I saw the little kids in the yard, I started thinking, oh my God, my kids, because I remembered my kids were in this house. And what is happening here? And are my kids safe? And immediately when I had that thought, that voice came back again and it said, your children are fine. Your children are safe. And at some point is when I noticed that egg-shaped thing. And it was off to my left. And it was probably about 25 feet from me. Yeah, it was not very small. It wasn't honestly much bigger than the pump house of the swimming pool. It was little. And in retrospect, there's no way 6 of anybody. There were 6 little kids out in that yard, or 6 of those little things or whatever. There's no way 6 of those could go in there and fly across the galaxy. That's just ridiculous to even think that. So I don't really know what that thing was. And as far as the little leggy things that came out of it, I don't think they would be strong enough to hold the weight of it. They felt more like they were trying to hold it steady, because I almost felt like there was a wavering, like it wasn't completely on the ground at some point. Like it was, like I said, it was like a bobber on a smooth lake when you're fishing, how that bobber kind of every now and then will bob.
Oh, yeah. So it was kind of hovering.
That's what it kind of, that's the sense I had, that it wasn't solidly down on the ground all the way. I mean, I could be wrong. I mean, this is just what I remembered. And I remember seeing the kids. Then I didn't want to take my eyes off of this thing because it scared the shit out of me. And I remember feeling terror and thinking, don't come near me. Please don't come near me. Please, I don't want to be anywhere near this thing. I didn't want to see it, but I didn't want to not see it because it was too close to me. I needed to know where it was. You know what I'm saying?
Can I ask you some questions about it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So it's about 3 feet wide. Is that what it says?
8.
8 feet wide. And how tall?
And that was the bottom. That it was a little wider at the middle part, but approximately about 8 feet in diameter around the bottom. I thought maybe it was, I can't even read my own writing, but I think I estimated that it maybe was maybe 8 feet tall or 10 feet tall or something like that. It really wasn't, it wasn't much taller than the pump house or the swimming pool. I have that, you know, and I'm really not that great at measuring things. I was just guesstimating, but I wasn't that big.
Is this a door?
It seemed like it was a different color than the rest of it, but I don't know what it was.
Okay, what was the color of all of it, and what did it look like it was made out of?
It looked like it was made out of metal to me, and there was I made another drawing that's very similar to this. It was still pretty smooth, but and
was it silver?
It was dark outside. It was it was silver-ish, maybe, but not glowy silver. You know what I mean? And in another drawing I did when I had another dream about it, I actually saw like a little areas where there might be rivets or little small rivets on them at some point. I didn't remember them in this drawing, but later, as I had more memories come back of it, it seemed like this was my first memory of it. But then later, I think I remembered more.
And right here, you said there's a. Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me.
No, that's okay.
So right here, you said there's light. So it looks like there's a light here. There's a light here, and then did these lights detach? Is that what you're showing there?
Some. I'm not sure whether it detached or not. I know it when I first saw that thing. There was actually a basketball-sized ball of white light off to the side of it, about that far away, and it was about as high up off of the ground as I am tall. And I saw it move down to the ground and then back up to the same position that it was in. And I felt like it was looking at me. I don't know why. I thought it was looking at me and, you know, scanning me or something. And then the kids that had come from all different directions in the yard kind of lined up over by the driveway, up by the corner where the pool fence gate started. They all kind of lined up and they just started sliding down across the yard towards this thing. And I'm like, what the hell? And I saw this thing. And then when I saw this thing, these kids, I don't even remember where they went. I don't remember seeing them go inside it. I don't even remember where they went. I have no idea where they just, when I saw the thing and when I saw the egg-shaped thing, they just kind of went away in my mind. You know what I mean? Because I was more terrified of this big thing. Okay.
And I don't want to interrupt. Please continue because I have so many questions.
I know.
Okay.
Well, after that, I'm still standing there the kids go towards this thing, and then I see this thing, and then it goes up and down, and then I hear the voice say my kids are okay. Then I hear another voice, and this one says my name, but it was a different voice than this one that had been talking to me. And as soon as I heard this voice, it's like, dang, I woke up. You know, I shook it off. I could move. I felt weird. And I remember turning towards the sound, which it was my mom. And she was up the steps to the upper porch, because this was a tri-level. So in the back, so it was a lower porch and an upper porch. The upper porch was from the kitchen. And she'd been in the kitchen, and she had stuck her head out the door a little bit and had called my name. And she's like, is everything okay? And I said, yeah, everything's cool. And I'm thinking to myself, what the hell just happened? And I feel so crazy and so weird and disjointed. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I don't want to go back and sew. I don't want to go back over there and do, maybe I want to get wet. I felt like I wanted to get wet for some reason. I don't know why. And I thought maybe Deanna will want to come over and go swimming, because they had this nice, built-in swimming pool, the lights in the pool and everything, lights outside. So ended up, instead of me going over there to sew, her and her daughter came to my house. And I remember we were walking across the backyard towards the pool. And her daughter stepped on something in the yard, and she's ow, their daughter was like, I don't know, 13 or something like that. She steps on something in the yard. So we get out to the swimming pool because Deanna thinks maybe she stepped on a bee that was out there, and we could see the stinger in her foot, right? Didn't see anything on her foot. And she's complaining that her foot's numb, and now the numbness is going up her leg and all kinds of strange stuff. And Deanna and I both were like, oh, let's get in the swimming pool. If it's a bee sting, that cold chlorinated water will be good for it. It'll help it feel better, So we're in the pool for maybe 10 minutes, and all of us started getting nauseous and not feeling good. Our stomachs did not feel good. And my eyes started burning. And I started noticing halos around the lights outside, like chlorine does to you when you're a kid, and you swim with your eyes open underwater too much. But I didn't do that this time. Eventually, they ended up going home, and I went into bed, got up the next morning. I could not open my eyes. They were on fire. They were swollen. It felt like they were full of glass, and I was in excruciating pain. So my mother took me to the emergency room. And this is weird too. Makes no sense to me. When we went into the emergency room, there was actually an ophthalmologist in the emergency room. Now, they don't typically hang around the emergency rooms. You know what I mean?
No.
And so in retrospect, I never thought much about it until years later. And I'm like, why was there an ophthalmologist in the emergency room? That doesn't make sense. He came in and he looked at me, and he asked my mom, can you take her across the street to my office? I can work her in. I would have my girls work her in. I have all my equipment and stuff over there. I can examine her better over there. And Mom said, okay. So we went over across the street from the hospital. It was on 16th and Ritter in Indianapolis. Community East is where I went. Anybody wants to look, I doubt if they have any records 40 some years later, but if you can find any, awesome, let me know. But he examined me, and I remember one of the first things that he said to me is, have you looked into the arc of the welder's torch? Have you looked into the sun? I'm like, I'm thinking to this guy, keeping in mind that I didn't remember the light and the kids and the egg-shaped craft at this point. When I went home, when I went back in bed, when I went back to go swimming, all of that was completely wiped from my mind. All I could think about was how weird I felt and how I wanted to get wet. And I wasn't even putting two and two together with the difference in time. And my girlfriend, who I was going to go sew with, and her husband, they didn't even question how long I'd been gone. Like when I finally got back to her, you'd have thought, and Budd made this comment to me, you'd have thought they would have been concerned at the length of time I was gone, because he figures I was probably out there like an hour and a half. and they didn't hear from me, they would have contacted mom or me or somebody,
Right.
or come over. Likely they would
Yes.
come over. We didn't have cell phones and stuff then, but they didn't. And later, when Budd interviewed him, he said it never even dawned on them the time that had passed. They never even thought about it.
How interesting.
Yeah. So, but anyway, they gave me medication, all kinds of medications, drops and gooey stuff to put in there.
So your eyes were burned.
He never really specifically said to me they were burned. I think that he diagnosed it with some kind of conjunctivitis or something, but he was very shocked that I had no symptoms prior to getting there because it was so bad. My vision changed immediately. I never wore glasses in my life. From that point on, when that healed up, I went so farsighted. I was wearing like 2.75, 3.0s when I was 25, and also let me throw this in too, so I don't forget it. I was diagnosed with macular degeneration in my late 30s and cataracts in my early 40s. And by the time I had both my lenses replaced, I think maybe I was 49 years old.
Me too.
And
I had cataracts at 49, and that's after a memory of being with ETs, and there was a huge white light that was like shone into my face. And then next thing I know, I have cataracts.
And I also developed ocular migraines, and I didn't even realize it at the time what they were I was having, where you see the flashes and then you get the headaches. And now mine's progressed. Now I see the auras, and I go blind. I go blind for like 25, 35 minutes afterwards, and they can see in my brain from my MRI, they can see the areas where I have the migraines because they're scarred. It's scarred.
You still have the migraines?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear
They're
that.
not as bad. I don't have them every day. So, I mean, I actually don't take anything for them because I don't have them enough to warrant it. But the last two bad ones I had, I thought I was having a stroke, so I went to the emergency room, but it was a migraine. But anyway, I never had any of that. I never had any of that problem till then.
So this egg-shaped craft left a mark in the grass.
It left.
Can you tell us about how you saw that? What happened?
A couple days later.
Well, we have two. I'm sorry. Is this in the snow? This is in the snow.
It melted. Yeah, that was the following winter in the snow.
It melted the snow. Oh, I see.
It melted the snow off of it that first year. That's the mark that was left. You're looking at it from one end. It was actually like about an 8-foot or so diameter circle. It had that little jet coming off one side and a little jet with a little shoved up bit of dirt on the other side. And then that streak is actually 49 feet long. And it's 49 feet long. It goes across the entire backyard up by the driveway and ends in a perfect arc. And it's about 2 feet wide. And the grass.
So that doesn't really correlate to this, does it, or does it?
No, I don't know. I don't know what that.
Well, there's that pad is right here.
That is where the circular part of it is where that was. The rest of that nonsense and stuff going on, I have no idea why it was like that. And I'll tell you this part right here where it's pushed up a little bit. You see the dirt
on the right?
Yeah, there's a big crack right there. And I stuck like a 12-inch ruler down there to see if I could see how deep the crack was. And I dropped the ruler and it disappeared. It disappeared. So I have no idea how deep down this went into the soil.
Oh. And do you think that was from one of these legs?
I don't know. It could have been, but I don't know.
Did this ball of light in your drawing, did it go in through this window, or are you showing us that it was attached to the side?
I thought it was attached to it at one point, and then it moved away from it, and then did its thing up and down, and then went back to it.
Okay. Did you see the egg-shaped video from the military whistleblower? Did you see all that? Jake Barber.
Yeah, I think I did see, yes.
Did that egg, is that egg that he's showing is similar to the egg that you saw?
Well, you know what? I can't tell because it's wrapped up in that net.
Yeah.
Isn't that where the video where when it was in a net?
Yeah.
It didn't particularly look to me like what I saw.
Yeah.
But you know what? I'll tell you what did, and this is bizarre.
Okay.
When I watched, do you remember recently when the two astronauts returned on that SpaceX capsule thing? Do you remember when they pulled that capsule into the back of the boat, the rescue boat? So they pulled that. So you got a shot with the camera, and they pulled that capsule in, so you could see when they opened up the bottom, and then the two astronauts came out. Yeah. When I saw that shot, I'm like, oh, holy cow! Look at that, because it was the right shape. It had the two portals, one on each side, and that little flap thing down at the bottom where they unscrewed it and took it off. And I'm like, oh my God, look at that. That, I don't know why that just kind of weirded me out. And then I started having all these weird thoughts about time travel.
Yeah, what came first?
I don't know. But anyway, it was just, that, to me, that looked more like what I saw than what Jake Barber had in that net. I couldn't really see a lot of what that was, honestly.
Yeah, it was a little disappointing.
And actually, I think it was smaller than although it's really hard for me to judge size because, it was way down there. I'd have to see it up close to see if it was even the same size. I don't know. But
okay, we have a few minutes left, and I would like to talk a little. Well, I don't want to interrupt your story. Was that all of your amazing, incredible story?
Well, just after that, we saw the mark in the yard. My nephew, a couple days later, my nephew pointed it out to us. It's like we didn't even look out the back window for like 2 days. And then my nephew's like, look, Grandma, what's wrong with your yard? And my mom says, oh, that's where a UFO landed. And I looked at her and I'm like, are you insane? Why the hell would you say something like that? She's sitting over there laughing. And then it's like something it's like something just dropped a ton of bricks on me, and bam, everything started up. From that point on, the memories just didn't stop for like a year coming.
Okay. Oh, hold on. This is interesting. You, at that point, when your mom said this is where the UFO landed, did you have a memory of the UFO at that point? You said you didn't when you went swimming.
No, I had, not.
But why would your mom say that?
I have no.
See it?
I don't know what she saw. I know that she told Budd she called me home because she saw a basketball-sized ball of white light in front of the kitchen window.
Oh.
And then it got smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And then when it disappeared, she got it in her head that I needed to get Debbie home right now.
So the whole time you're out in the yard, she's in the house, but did she tell Budd what she saw?
She told him she saw the ball of light, the basketball.
That's it. But maybe everyone in the house was kind of like whacked out. You know how they kind of put them to sleep.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah. I don't think she told him anything else. I don't think, that she saw anything while she was in there. But she.
Okay. Often with experiencers, we see symbols. And I find this very interesting. If you can tell us about the symbols you were seeing, and did you paint this?
Yeah, actually, that's a collage. I cut it out. I was trying to recreate where I thought I saw. I didn't necessarily see these all together like that, but I saw them in the same place. And they were, the walls that they were on were like shiny black marble-ish, cold. And they were like engraved into it and then white.
That's pretty.
Look, interestingly enough, look at that one. It looks like a Wi-Fi symbol, but I made that in like 1989. So, I'm thinking, well, wherever I saw that must have been telling them that this is where Wi-Fi was or something. I don't know.
Okay, you said this is the collage, so that is not a picture you cut out of a magazine. You actually drew those symbols.
I made those, yeah.
Okay, that's your drawing. Did you do this right here on the left?
Yes, I did.
What's that? That's beautiful.
That was just something I saw in my head.
Wow. Okay. I wish we could see the whole
Interestingly
thing. It
enough,
looks
yeah.
gorgeous.
Interestingly enough, and it was also a cutout, like a collage. Interestingly enough, a lot of the drawings I did during this period of time, which was about 2 years worth, were very similar to some things that showed up in the crops about 10 years later with the crop circle phenomenon. But, you know, and I feel like now, even if the crop circles, even if all of them were made by people, who put those images in those people's head? Because those same images were in mine. Even though I didn't make crop circles, I just drew pictures, you know, and I was like 5,000 miles away.
What do you think these symbols are for you?
I don't know. The top one and the bottom one represent some kind of numerical counting system. The one in the middle, I thought somehow connected it with sound. And then the one, I laughingly refer to it as the Wi-Fi signal. I have no idea what it meant.
Okay, so you think this is some kind of counting, some kind of numerical counting, this one and this one. This is sound.
It's either sound, or calendar or something. It might be, I can't remember. I've
really
got them all
pretty.
drawn down. They were, it was different. It was weird. And those are the kind of things that would wake me up in the middle of the night and would not leave me alone until I drew them down. And then once I put them out of my head, then they would leave me alone.
Where are they now? Do you have them hanging up? Do you look at them?
I gave them to Budd. I gave everything to Budd because I made them for Budd. I made them for him so he could see what was in my head. So I gave all of that to him, and I just took pictures of it so I would have the pictures for myself, but I gave the originals to him. So wherever his stuff is, they may be buried under tons of his stuff from when he passed away, or they may have been destroyed or whatever. I don't know. All I have of them now is the photos.
What was Budd like? Was he as nice as he seems?
He was. He was a very compassionate and very intelligent and very driven person. I mean, even though he was just an artist, you know, he was very smart, and he knew he knew to bring in professionals to do the things that needed to be done. I saw psychiatrists, I saw psychologists, I saw medical doctors. He even got I had a voice stress test done here in Indianapolis, and he arranged for it. I think the man might have been like a retired police officer or something. I mean, he paid for a lot of it with his own money, or he got money somehow donated, because I had nothing. I didn't have any money. So he really gave all of himself in his investigation. You know what I mean? And his family took me in as family and welcomed me. My family loved him. His visits were always everybody sitting around the table all night long talking, and you know, he could tell stories, and of course he was interviewing everyone too. So, and much to my mom's chagrin, the first time he came to the house, came to Indy, he was out knocking on neighbors' doors, and my mom's like, "Oh my God, the neighbors are gonna think we're all crazy."
Yeah, but these are fond memories. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was a great guy. I really still miss him to this day. There's nothing about my life that would be recognizable had I not met him, had I not had this experience, and had I not met him. Everything in my life changed on June 30th, 1983, and everything about me changed that night. I don't know how to explain it, but
yeah. Oh, I get it. I understand that. I think just about every experiencer gets that. It's like there's the life before the contact and the life after, and they're very different.
And I had weird little contacts and things prior to this night, but this night was a pivotal changing in me, that maybe the other stuff was just, you know, meant to work me up to this point. I don't know.
Yes.
But everything changed.
There's more. There's more. I wanted to talk about how your life has changed afterwards. So maybe you can come back, Deb, because 1 hour is not enough for you. Oh, really?
I know. I'm so sorry. I try to condense everything down, but it's really hard.
No, you have a story. It takes time to tell. You don't want to rush through it, and it's
I mean,
extraordinary.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I'd be happy to come back and we can talk about all
Thank
of
you. I'd like to know how you process this. I think that's very important. And we can help experiencers. You help experiencers.
Mhm.
So how can an experiencer get a hold of you? And how can anybody get a hold of you if they want you to speak at a conference or be in a documentary or anything like that?
I have a website. It's www.debshome, DEBSHOME, and you can email me through that. And my husband is my webmaster. He updates it all the time. It's got different stories about things I remember and how I've gone through things, and also things that I find interesting out in the world in the news and stuff. So it's been around for about 20 some years. We've had millions of visitors. So
which TV shows have you been on?
I don't do very many of those, honestly,
Okay.
but I was on recently the identifying. Oh gosh, it was the National Geographic one that had Leslie Kane, and
Oh, you were on that one.
mhm.
Oh,
Yeah, episodes 5 and 6, I believe. I was in them, and I mean it's live streaming. You can watch it on Hulu and Disney Plus. But it's
Yeah,
also on
that's good.
National Geographic. Investigating the Unknown, their 3rd season. I was on that. And I think that was phenomenal the way they did it. I thought it was very well done, and they did the experiencer very respectfully.
Yes.
And they kind of ease the viewer into it with
Yeah.
a lot of other scientific folks, and I just thought they did an excellent job. I was very proud to be a part of that.
Okay, I'd like to show your books. And this is the book that Budd wrote about your experience. Everything's on Amazon?
Yeah, and this one is out of print, but it's been re-released, so you can buy the new release of Intruders. It was released again by August Night Press, like in 2023. So you can.
And it has a different cover, doesn't it?
It does have a different cover.
Yeah, I wanted to find this. Is this the original cover?
That's the original cover.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to find. Okay, then we have this.
That's the first one that I wrote, and then my sister came in and she told her story of her events in this one as well. And this was done mainly I wanted to tell my story first person, and I also wanted to put my name on it because I felt like we use pseudonyms in Intruders. And when I was telling I felt like when I tell my story, I'm owning it because I can't expect anyone to take me serious if I'm not even going to tell you my real name, and if I can't tell you my real name, then it's not time for me to tell you, I need to be able to own that. And so I did that, and I wanted to put it out there for people who had the same experiences I had. And then this is when I finished it. Came out in 2021 and got to finish it during COVID when I had a lot of time. And it tells the story in the beginning, but it goes much further into my present time, my present life, and all the changes that I've been through.
Yeah.
And kind of how I've navigated through it.
Yes, which is, I think, a fascinating journey that experiencers go through afterwards.
Mhm.
And some of us come out better for it, and some of us don't allow ourselves to come out better for it, because you do have a choice of how you're going to process the information, right? You don't have to be a victim of it.
No.
Did you think you were victimized? Did you have a victimized perspective in the beginning about what happened?
Yeah, I had a lot of fear, and I had a lot of, terror in the beginning and confusion, didn't understand anything. But I don't really think at any time, despite all of it, did I ever feel like a victim. I don't know why.
That's great.
I'm too much of a survivor, I guess, to, I just wanted to make it mean something. I wanted to find some meaning in it, so that I had 2 kids to raise. And for all intents and purposes, for all I knew, I was going to be a single mom forever. And I had 2 kids to raise. They were my priority. And I thought, I cannot lose my mind and go crazy here. These 2 children depend on me, and so I just did what I had to do. But I mean, it wasn't easy. Definitely wasn't easy. And I've been through regular life things that some people don't come back from. And I did. So, I mean, I'm a lot stronger than I ever gave myself credit for. Let's just say that.
Yes, we're resilient.
That's for sure.
Yeah. All right, Deb. Thank you with all my heart.
You're
Thank you,
welcome.
everybody, for watching and listening. Hope to see you next time.
Thank you.